My wife Steph and I have been together for almost 2 years now. We met at college and hit it off right away. Steph was orphaned when she was very young, so she had been raised by her grandfather until she went off to school and met me. I didn't know much about her grandfather other than he was extremely protective of her, almost verging on paranoid. Still, he passed away before I got the chance to meet him, so I never really gave him that much thought other than to comfort Steph. That was until we found out that he had owned something like 900 acres of forest. Steph was his only living descendant, so she had been given the deed and a key ring pertaining to the house that she had never seen before. What a 23-year-old girl was going to do with all that, I don't know. All I know is when she told me about her new land, I knew we had to go and check it out. As we drove up, I asked her if she had been to this house in the forest before. She had said, "Listen, I didn't even know this land existed. I had no idea why Gramps would keep it from me." It was pretty clear that she had still taken his death pretty hard. No wonder, really. He had basically raised her after all. The drive up into the mountains from our college took a couple of hours. The forest was thick with pine and oak trees growing close to the road. The further we got from civilization, the worse the roads got. Potholes, broken branches, and even grass had begun to sprout up in some places. Our plan was to stay the night at the house, but if that didn't pan out, we'd brought a tent as well. Our GPS had us turn off on a gravel road. This road wound and twisted around turns and rocky outcroppings. It was pretty clear that it was leading us down into a valley. After half an hour or so on this new road, we saw the house out in front of us. The house had clearly been abandoned for decades. I had brought my camera with us, so I took a picture of it right as we stepped out of the car. Steph was pretty clearly disappointed. Well, I guess it was too much to hope someone would be caring for it all this time. Stretching my legs after all that time in the car was really nice. Steph walked up to the house to check it out. I warned her that the ground might be rotted out and to be careful. I started walking around the house and took another picture. I'll link it here. I came back to the house and walked in the front door. The inside was a mess, all rotted wood and dirt. I was honestly surprised it was still standing at all. I stuck my head back outside and my eye caught on something. There was a tree growing just to the right of the house. I saw 4 long deep claw marks in it, a few months old at least. I raised my camera and took a picture. That was when I heard Steph shriek. I ran back around the front of the house and she was standing in front of something rotten. When I took a closer look, I saw it was a deer carcass. I told Steph that we were most definitely in bear country, then took a picture of the deer. Only thing was, it looked like the deer had been cut open by a bunch of razor blades. Bears don't normally do that. The sun soon set after that. We took out our tent inside the house and found a nice flat spot to set up on. I busted out my gas grill and made a couple of hamburgers. We were sitting in our camp chairs inside the house and feeling pretty good by the time it got completely dark. Steph was looking at me pretty amazed. I asked her why she was so surprised. She said, "It's just, I've never been camping before. It's different than I imagined." She looked down at her phone. Less self-service at least. I decided to ask some more about Steph's grandpa. "Why do you think he never told you about this place? And why didn't he ever take you camping?" I asked. She said, "I don't know." I went on for a while about how cool I thought the property was, plans for the future parties with friends, bonfires, all that. Clouds had rolled in, so all the light was just from our little lantern I had brought. Pretty soon, we headed inside the tent, zipped up the door, and we were ready for bed. Steph had already fallen asleep when it happened. All the sounds from outside, all the crickets and birds and owls, all stopped. And in an instant, laying in my sleeping bag inside the tent, the silence was deafening. That's when I heard it. A distinct clicking noise echoed out from the forest. I lay in silence, trying to guess what kind of animal might have made that sound. It was so loud that Steph actually woke up next to me and asked, "What is it?" I told her I didn't know. Then I heard the clicking noise again, extremely close. So close it seemed like it might be right next to the house. I slipped out of my sleeping bag, still inside the tent, and grabbed my camera. I walked up to the tent door and zipped it down as quietly as I could. Then I stuck the camera out into the darkness and took a picture. In the flash, I saw a hand reaching through a broken window of the house. It almost looked human, but it was deathly white and had long claws extending from each finger. Through the window, I saw what looked like a human silhouette with two bright yellow eyes staring inward at us. I can't be sure, but it looked like there was blood around its mouth. I pulled the camera back and zipped the tent door closed. Steph sat up. "What is it?" she asked. I moved next to her and covered her mouth with my hand. My heart was racing and I felt all the hairs on my body standing up. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Silence. For a long moment, I heard nothing. Then the clicking sound echoed out from where I knew the front door to the house was. Steph stared at me, her eyes clearly confused and afraid. She put her hand on mine and tried to pull it away, but I shook my head and didn't take it off. Silence again. I strained to hear, but nothing. For what must have been 2 minutes, I sat with my hand on Steph's mouth. Then I heard the clicking noise from just a few feet outside the tent door. I had no idea how it got so close without making any sound. I froze for a moment. Then, as quietly as I could, I reached into my pants laying on the ground and pulled out my car keys. I hit the unlock button twice. My car's horn beat loudly from where we'd been parked in front of the house. Silence again. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I heard the clicking noise from out where my car was parked in front of the house. The clicking echoed out a few times, but each one was further and further away. After half an hour or so, the crickets started back up and the forest sounded alive again. Steph stared at me. "What did you see?" I told her to get dressed and to be ready to run. We got dressed in the tent and I opened the door. We ran to where my car was, jumped in it, and sped away. I didn't stop until we reached home. The next morning, I went out to my car and seen this on the hood.